All right, we're back at it with another Elevate 360 Mastermind interview. Today, you are going to be hearing from Marissa Greene. Have you ever wondered how you can pivot from a career in corporate that's burning you out to come back and consult on your terms and create the time and the freedom that you want, along with the income to create the financial security to then pursue your wildest dreams and build your dream business? That is what you're going to hear from when you listen in to this podcast episode with Marissa Greene and learn some tips on the power of stillness for creativity. So hope you guys enjoy this. Need some effective, tactical advice that actually helps you get results and makes a real difference in your life and business? You've come to the right place. If you're finding yourself here today, it means you're getting ready to gain serious traction in your business, rapidly multiply your income and impact, and you're ready to make it happen while living all out. Guys, I'm Melissa Hinault, your trustworthy corporate dropout turned six-figure business burnout turned happy and healthy CEO of a multi-million-dollar online business. And you're listening to the Burnout to All Out podcast. On this show, we're serving up innovative growth strategies, simple implementation methods to put them into practice, and action-stimulating inspiration tailored specifically for the modern entrepreneur. Let's dive in. All right, guys, so excited to bring to you another incredible Elevate E360 Mastermind member, Marissa Greene. Marissa Greene is the founder and CEO of Reimagine Ambition. And Marissa, I'm so excited to have you here on the podcast today. I just want to get right into it. It wasn't so long ago that you were actually in a W-2 working a 9-to-5.
Oh, yeah.
And now here you are, founder, CEO. You also have this amazing consultant business and you've exited and you are the example of what you're mentoring today. But let's go back to the backstory. It wasn't that long ago that you were in corporate America before exiting. Take us back to that moment in time when it was evident to you that it was time to pivot. Can you talk about that?
So there were two key moments. And really, I feel like it was a series of moments. It kind of ticks away at you.
Yep.
And like every week or every month, there's a little flag of you're like, okay, it's time to start thinking. It's time to start thinking. But it's so hard because you get those golden handcuffs, you get the fear factor of scarcity and what will I do and how will I do it? And so I kept shoving that calling down. I kept saying, now's not the time, now's not the time. And then this was in 2021. We had just come through most of the pandemic. I had both small kids at home. My daughters were 2 and 4 during the pandemic.
Wow.
And the role that I had, I was leading employee experience and equity and inclusion. And it was all for those 2 years during the pandemic.
Oh, yeah.
Just complete madness. And so I had really worked myself to the bone and had also really put my kids to the side, not intentionally, but I wasn't intentional enough about the interactions that I was.
It was a hard time back then.
It was for all of us, right? And so my husband really stepped in and he did all the daddy and preschool and did all the things while I just was like, well, no, I have to, like, the company needs me. This is so much of my identity was wrapped up in that role. And then it was like the spring of 2021. And all of a sudden I started getting these terrible headaches. And I don't even know that you can describe them as headaches. It was more like lightning in my head. And I was always a person who would kind of work through sickness or just keep pushing. And I couldn't. I was completely in bed for 2 weeks, couldn't figure out what was going on. And that was that first indicator of, okay, this is no longer just about pushing through. This is actually impacting my health. And then was sort of awakened to the impact it was also having on my family. Like all of a sudden, all the things became so much clearer in terms of how hard I was working and then the impact it was having on the kids and on my husband and on myself and my health. So I got through that. And then I was still like, that achievement drive is so hard to get rid of. And so for another like 4 or 5 months, I was still like, well, but I'm so close to promotion. I'm so close. I'm going to just keep going. And if I get that promotion, then everything, it'll all be worth it. It'll all be better. We'll be through the pandemic. And I sit down with my boss at the time and she was lovely. She'd been helping me like create more balance and finding ways to make sure I wasn't getting headaches and completely ruining my health. And we sit down and she's like, I think you have 12 to 18 more months to that promotion. And that was it. I was like, wow, I can't believe that I put so much into that achievement and that I thought everything would then feel worth it. And I remember leaving that meeting really kind of mind blown and also disappointed. Not disappointed about the promotion. By that point, I was kind of over that. I was disappointed that I didn't choose myself sooner and that I didn't see that was the direction that I needed to go. And disappointed that I needed to get to that place in that job for the light bulb, the final light bulb to go off. And so it was about, I think I put my 2 weeks in the next week. And then I ended up consulting back for the company a little bit. And that was what got me started in my consulting because I didn't know, right? I didn't have a plan. I didn't know. It was just like done. Yeah. It's time.
Well, and it's interesting. So I want to go back to what you were saying about being hard on yourself of, I don't know why I didn't choose myself sooner. And I guess I'm a huge proponent recently in a lot of my studies spiritually that we're continually shown the sign. It's that spiral. It's a spiral upwards, but we continue to see the same signs for change until we change.
Right.
And so you're going to continue to see those symptoms, or you're going to continue to hit that hardship. You're going to continue to see that same story over and over until we take radical responsibility. And so just for you, it took you literally being debilitated. To take radical responsibility. But now the lesson is learned.
Right. Now it won't go back. Go back. Well, and that's so true too. And at that time also, I didn't really have a spiritual journey. I didn't understand the importance of that element of my life and my work. And I think it's also why I didn't know what the heck I was going to do when I came out. And I think sometimes when you're trying to make that jump out of something, and in particular out of like that corporate stable, et cetera, it's really hard to have trust and faith that you will spiral up and you will land at the right place. And so now I sort of understand that and I'm more willing to take risks and more willing to kind of follow the spiral, so to speak. But but at the time I needed I didn't need the spiral. Like a door had to slam in my face in order for me to like see it. So yeah, but now it's different, right? Because I started to open myself up spiritually. I started to dig a little deeper. And instead of chasing the bright and shiny that anyone else might put in front of me, which is what I did for a lot of my career. A lot of my career was, hey, this key project that I know you're passionate about, why don't you lead this? And then it becomes 50% of my job. And now I'm doing 3 people's jobs. That felt like the right thing to do. Now I'm much more guided by my own sense of self, my own sense of genius and accomplishment, not what everyone else is putting in front of me. And I think it's easier to follow the spiral when you've found that trust.
Well, and I think that I don't want to put words in your mouth, but from my own experience, that first huge leap of faith, that first massive perceived rock bottom, that's actually just a death of who you are to be a rebirth of who you're becoming, but you can't see it in the midst of it. But once you've had that first just complete perceived rock bottom that I'll actually call rebirth, then you start to build the resilient muscle for the next iteration of that and the next time and the next time. You become less and less risk averse because you realize that in the margins of taking those risks is where the transformation actually happens.
That's where it happens. That's where you actually change. And it's interesting because when I left, there was a woman who said, if you just had a little bit more grit and resilience, I could stick it out in the corporate world. And I was like fired up and also still very voiceless. Like I didn't have the words to come back in that moment. But what I have learned since then is that the resilience you're describing, that change, that identity shift is far more meaningful than any kind of resilience I could have had to just keep going the way that I was. And you don't know that before you make the jump. But once you make the jump, then you're like I almost get excited about that now. You know, it's like, okay, let's like dig our hands in. It's time to change again. Or it's time for the new onion to be peeled off, like the new layer, because there's something better, deeper. Whereas before, I couldn't see that. It was like, I felt like I just needed resilience for the sake of grit, not resilience for the sake of actually transforming and changing. So,
and my experience with that is it's literally like a spiritual enlightenment.
Oh, yeah.
Everything around you is just all of a sudden just a beautiful experience and you're embracing it instead of resisting it and being fearful of it.
Oh, absolutely. Well, and I keep hearkening it all the way down to just joy. And one of the first steps I took in addition to starting consulting was getting a life coach. And I didn't know what I was walking into at the time. I didn't know exactly what kind of life coach it was, sort of like joining the E360. I didn't totally know what I was doing, but it was exactly what I needed.
Energetically aligned to what,
exactly. Yes. And the first question that she asked as part of the intake was, what brings you joy? And I remember in that moment not being able to answer.
Wow.
I was like, I don't really know. And then trying to uncover the elements of my life that did feel joyful. That's when I, again, like a door slamming in your face, I started to realize how much of the joyful moments I was skipping over because I needed to get back to work, or I needed
conditioning
achievement because I needed to be productive and I needed to be busy. And with 2 small children, it was this, oh my God, I'm missing all of these joyful moments. And so it's been this quest really to find that joy and and you're right. That enlightenment is like this sheet comes off and all of a sudden you're able to look at all these things in your life and be like, it's damn good. Like, this is great. Even when something's going wrong, right?
Yeah, it's still beautiful.
Yes.
It's so funny. It makes me think of this post that Preston Smiles, one of my past mentors, posted the other day. This guy's like standing in like the trees in the forest, and there's these beautiful trees, and he's got this huge smile on his face, and he looks at the camera and he's like, this is all free? Sheer awe of just like, look around for a minute, right?
Yes. The joy in the little things, the gratitude for the small things. And realizing no level, this is my own personal perspective, but no level of achievement can take that away from you.
Yes.
Or add to that. Like those basics of that joy. Yes, maybe you can afford a little more, or you have your prominence or your presence, but like that pure unbridled joy, you don't need any of the extras.
I want to go back to something you said about the guilt of how hard you were working and what you were missing out on with your kids, and this kind of through line to joy, because I can relate to you so much on that level. I know that in my first 2 out of 3 kids, I'll use the term miserable cow in the rain. It was like I was in corporate as like this numbed out, miserable cow in the rain who's like a cow standing in the rain, who's like normal baseline threshold is like, well, this is what it is, right?
Gotta just keep going.
Yeah. And I'd missed out. The thing is, I didn't know what I had missed out on. I wasn't consciously aware of what I was missing because I was a miserable cow in the rain. And I think that back to that regretful moment, like it sounds like you've had, for me, it was when I finally did quit and came home and actually had a 3rd child.
Right.
And in my first 2 children, I was back to work in the first 12 weeks. I didn't see their first steps. I didn't hear their first words because I was on a plane. I was gone. I was not active in their school. Like I didn't know. I wasn't involved in the school. Like just, I provided.
Sure. Right.
And I when I was home outside of work, I was as present as I could be as a mom. And I'll never forget this like polar moment of emotions I had with my 3rd, where I had left. Britt had come home, was running a business from home, working literally 15 hours a week, spending so much time with him. And he started his like first day, he was turning like a year old, and I was putting him in like a church program for a couple hours, 3 days a week. And I met the teacher, became the mom at the, whatever you call it, the room mom or whatever, and got to witness his life from a totally different angle. And my bigger kids, I was there when they got off the bus, and to embrace them as they were getting off the bus instead of shushing them from my office.
Right.
And I had the most compelling emotions that were so polar. And on one side, I was feeling immense gratitude that I was getting these moments with my youngest. And in those same moments, overwhelmed with sadness of the loss of the moments I never had with my other kids. And I had no awareness that it was even available to me when I was in corporate. Like no awareness. Didn't miss it, didn't know it existed.
No, you could have it.
Right.
Yeah.
So like I feel you on so many levels on that of just like the regret, but then what do? You just move forward.
You just move forward.
And do it differently.
You move forward and you do it differently with the information that you now have.
Yeah.
And, you know me, I'm a crier, I'll probably cry, but that polarization of that realization, I had the same thing. And it was even more prominent for my younger daughter, who was 2, and she's a high emotion kid too. And I traveled the first 2 years of her life. I was on the road 3 weeks or in the middle of COVID. And flash forward to when I had quit and I started having time, same kind of thing. And I'm actually sitting with her.
Present.
present.
Like in the moment.
Exactly. Because I had sat with her many times.
But your mind is elsewhere.
Exactly. I was like racing, running, what needs to be done, what email did not get to,
you're like
who's texting me on the phone.
You're in that dull stare, like playing with the toy, but your mind is like totally somewhere else.
Completely zoned out. And so this was my first few moments of totally being present. And she was very resistant to me. And I remember choosing moment. I was like, I can either sit here and be so sad for what I lost, what I didn't have with her, and where we are right now. I can figure out how I make it better moving forward.
Yes.
And like that has been with my older daughter too, but in particular with Emerson, it has been a journey because she grew so accustomed to having her dad around.
Right.
So she preferred him for everything. And her older sister had become the person who would get things for her and help her do things, teach her. And all of a sudden I was just, not only had I not been present, but that bond wasn't as strong as I had wanted it to be. And so just this past week, she went back to school last week, and at the drop-off, she like leans down, whispers in my ear. She's like, "Mommy, I'll miss you." And I was like, I'm never the one that she misses.
Yeah.
And so it made all these times leaving corporate, doing consulting, taking the time off, like we take vacations, I'd step away, I'd turn my phone off, and I was like, I'm the one she misses.
Yes.
Like it made all of it worth it. There was an onion that came off, right?
Yes, there was a layer right there.
Yeah,
yes.
Like a new identity. Like,
yes.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, this is so good. Okay. And like, here I am. We're like both in tears if you're listening on the podcast. And so here we are. It's like the pendulum swings from corporate leader over burnout, over like just overburdened to really where I want to go. Let's dive into this and then we'll get into really what you have for the greater community at large. But before we get there, I want to start about the stepping stones of exiting corporate because I know a lot of our listeners are still working professionals or they're straddling with their corporate career and they're looking at how do I get out? And I think that you've done a beautiful movement from corporate into consulting that's allowed you to really like do business on your terms while also building a totally different passion project. So as an inspiration for folks who are looking to kind of leave the W-2, but how can I like backdoor consult? What did that look like for you?
Okay, so I think the first thing was I couldn't be too precious about what I did. I chose the elements of my genius that I enjoyed. Like I want to do things, it was all about bringing me joy. So I wanted to do things that brought me joy. But I, at first, really stepped into where can my genius add support as a consultant? And for me, it was freelance consulting. I wasn't trying to build an agency. I was a one-person show. And it was identifying, like, what are the 3 things that I can knock out of the park anytime that I do it? And for me, that's building experiences, communicating with compassion and authenticity, and planning the heck out of any kind of, like, rollout or program within a company. And so I started reaching out to my network and just being very clear about those were the 3 things that I could help them knock out of the park, whatever the situation. And all of a sudden, it just was like work was coming to me. It took the guesswork out of it. And I will say for the first year, I said yes to everything. Burnt out again. Different kind of burnout.
I was going to say the swing of the pendulum from corporate to the burnt out entrepreneur, which happens to all of us.
Yes, exactly. So I did, but I knew the triggers a little sooner. And I also was less risk averse. So I realized I could say no to a couple of things. And so that first year journey was really just getting super clear on my genius, super clear on communicating what that was so that I could get work coming in, that I could have work to say yes or no to. And then the other element, but for me, culture is really important. And I needed to work with individuals and a company that I knew would support my family mission as well. And that's not always easy to find. Like as moms or dads, we have to work a little harder to find companies or organizations willing to give you that. I also had to learn how to, I call it harnessing the hustle. Like I had to hustle. Like I had to get in there. It wasn't like I was just like sitting around, you know, and stuff was coming my way. You had to know when to turn it on and when to turn it off. And so I think also some of that was spiritual and energy, like you attract the right people.
Yes.
And I found myself with a consulting company where they do all 1099s and they bring us into the work based on what they need. But because of that, there's a huge amount of flexibility. Like I can say yes or no to work. They respect what I'm doing, that I went over the summer for 3 weeks and didn't work at all.
Yes.
You know, you can organize your projects. So that's how I did it. I think if you're out there trying to make that leap, the other thing, and you've said this, and another coach that I work with said this, it's really hard to start something from a place of scarcity.
Yes. Sam talks about that a lot. Like the energy that your business is founded on is really important. Yeah.
Yes. And so coming out and finding a way to directly and immediately apply what you were already doing in your day job into a consultancy, some funds coming in, to not feel that scarcity, really freed me up creatively to continue that self-exploration, to continue that discovery, to figure out what is my purpose. Yeah. And with clarity. Yeah. 'Cause I didn't totally know. Like, you know, like,
you knew what you didn't want?
Yes.
That was becoming very clear.
Very clear what I didn't want, but I never would have imagined that I'd land where I am. And so I think that's the other thing is you create some space for yourself by going ahead and like leaning into consulting with the thing that you already know and you get some money coming in. It frees you up to be completely creative and open to anything else that might come that maybe you couldn't build the recipe for because you wouldn't envision it.
And the consulting piece, not only does it allow the revenue stream, but it allows the autonomy of the amount of work you're willing to take on and your calendar, which kind of brings me to the next question I was going to ask you is really the power of stillness to drive innovation, because you talked about having the time to get creative. Can you talk a little bit about that?
So, busy working mom, old Marissa, there was not a moment of stillness.
Of course not.
Like, I would sit down on the couch and it would just be like, back up. And my husband would be like, what is happening? Like, just sit down. And I, over time, started to realize how much that was impacting me. And actually, when I started practicing meditation or really getting clear about stillness, I didn't know what it would open up for me. I just knew that I needed some moments of quiet. I just knew I needed to like calm and settle. And then the rest has been one giant surprise. Yeah. Is just the, like you said, this beautiful idea of like, well, it's all joy here. And I don't mean to sound Pollyanna about it, but it's true. And not all the revelations that come through are joyful, or sometimes it's a slap of, come on, you got to get with the program and move this way or move that way. But being still enough to listen, being still enough to be aware. I'm no longer the cow in the rain. I am this being
tuned in,
that is tuned in, right? To the good, the bad, the ugly, the awesome. And that is really, especially in E360 and working with you and working with everybody that you've brought in the program, like I didn't know I could get clarity like I have now. I didn't actually know what kind of clarity I was seeking until now. Now it's like, pfft, that's it. Okay. And I don't know that it will end where it's beginning either. But okay.
Yes.
Like, I'll just keep going.
The opportunities are endless.
Yes. Yeah. Don't limit yourself.
Yes.
Don't limit yourself to only what you can think of in your mind in between 8,000 other tasks, 8,000 other emails, the shoes and socks on the floor. Don't limit yourself to only creating capacity between all of those moments. Yeah. Build capacity for your own stillness and for your own intuition and the things that you cannot see to come through.
Can you speak a little bit to what that daily practice looks like for you? Because it's interesting. I did my morning meditation this morning and came up with some profound ideas for Modern Entrepreneur next year.
I love it.
And when I got in the car driving over here with our team, Cheyenne, who's our CMO, was asking, she was like, I'm really curious about your practice. Tell me how you get this clarity and creativity with what you do with meditation. So I'm sure the listeners are like, okay, what is Marissa doing?
Yeah, so I'll tell you about mine. But one thing that I will say before is I am a believer that you have to find the right modality for you. And I think that takes a bit of trial and error. So in my experience working with my coach before, it was a lot of just orientation and learning to be in the moment and in my space. As simple as, it wasn't really even meditation. It was just taking a look around the room and sort of noticing everything and orienting to the idea that I am here, I am present, I am in this space. And I would do that with my kids. They wouldn't know, but they'd be playing. And I'd be like, okay, part of me being present.
Be where your
this,
feet are.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so it started there. What it has grown to is a daily meditation practice. I usually do it at night because it's part of my total clearing from the day. And then I journal after, before going to sleep.
Yeah.
And it's really the combination of that, though, that's been the upped the game a little bit.
Yes.
Because for the longest time, I wasn't journaling after. And I was kind of just seeing meditation as this nice way to calm down and get my brain clear. And it wasn't until I started asking and inviting new ideas, asking and inviting different perspectives.
Yes.
Asking and inviting, like, what do I do next? I was like, what? Like,
yes.
Okay, this is now the clarity comes
You've opened up the channel, the floodgate.
Yes. And then I was like, well, I got to write all this down because I'll lose it. Like I won't be able to keep it. And then part of the practice then is throughout the week deciding, okay, which elements can I implement right now? Which elements are kind of future state, parking lot ideas? Is there any pivot necessary? And so it's interesting because I think everybody's got to start somewhere. If you're out there and you've never done meditation before, maybe just start and then practice some other things. I will say too, Sam's sound healing that you've opened the door to for us has been huge. I'm part of her sound vault and I listen to a sound healing a couple times a week. Yeah. And then breath work. So I started to become facilitator in breath work. Like that's changed my world as well, but in a different way. That to me is less stillness because you're actively doing something.
Yeah, but it's definitely has its own rocket fuel. Yeah. I love what you said about welcoming in the thoughts. And that was the discussion we had on our way here today and what I told my team is, well, when I sit with meditation, I set intention. And actually one of the first things I say is I give you universal permission to give me the guidance that I need.
I love that.
Allow me to see what I need to see. Allow me to know what I need to know. Give me the words that I need to hear. And I find that when I give that universal permission and I actually ask for it, I receive it. And I truly believe that we are all vehicles for propelling the universal good for the collective. If we're in tune and in line with our God-given gifts and we're taking radical action in a way of taking those gifts and creating a ripple effect of a positive impact on the greater good, we are in our highest alignment. And the more we can tune into that and ask, what are my next steps and give permission, the more clarity we get. But if we're constantly in go, and not creating the space to listen, how can we feel divinely directed?
Exactly. And then we're not in alignment, right? We're really in alignment with all of the external factors pushing us in a direction.
And that's controlling us. Like your external reality becomes your personality.
Yes. Oh. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah. That one for sure, because that's the other part of this journey is identity. And really coming home to who your true self is.
Yes.
And for all those years that I was just being externally directed by all these different paths and potential and bright and shiny unicorns, whatever they may be, I lost myself. And really, in some ways, didn't really learn who I was. I didn't take the time to be still.
Well, we're raised from a very young age in the school system. Here's what you need to do.
Yeah, fit in this box.
To fit in this box, take these classes. Even in college, it's like, check the box, take the test. You get to corporate and it's like, this is your role. This is your responsibility. Like wherever are we allowed to ask, what is our purpose?
And like given the space or encouraged to take the space, right? Even just taking a vacation feels like a luxury.
Yeah.
Let alone a trip to Bali, like in your circumstance where you can find yourself. And I mean, that has also become a part of my mission. And back to the idea of asking for guidance and like directing, like I really struggled with asking for help in my daily external life too. That was a huge, huge awakening as a parent after I left corporate, was realizing how much I was taking on and doing myself because I was afraid of asking for help and afraid of receiving it. And then the same thing happened with meditation and asking for guidance and creating that permission and kind of opening the door. I was really afraid of it. I didn't know what I was going to hear. I didn't know what was going to come through. And it felt so foreign. Like, who does that? Like,
right.
Who does that? Who lays down and closes their eyes and like asks, you know, for the next step? But then kind of like you said, once you do it, it's this, there is like a calm and a knowing that comes with it.
And connection.
Yes. And then you realize like, oh, this is what alignment is.
Yes.
And this is where I'm meant to go.
Yes.
And it's just, yeah, it's pretty amazing.
So good. Okay. So another question for you. This has been such a good episode, but I want to talk about You talked about who does this, who lays down, and who just like asks, right? I want to talk about your journey to self-care and recharging, because I know one of the things that we chatted about in coaching this year was you taking a big break this summer to recharge before the back half of the year with these new things that you're launching. So can you talk a little bit about the practice and self-care and the discipline of doing that?
Absolutely. Well, and I would say too, choosing to do E360 was a practice in self-care. Like, I didn't know it necessarily when I did it, but the act of choosing to invest in yourself, and I think that's become a through line of my self-care. Not that everything requires a giant investment. It doesn't, for sure. However, it's the mindset of deciding I'm worth it. If it does require an investment, I'm worth it. And for me, a lot of the time exchange is an investment, right? Time I don't spend on my business is money I'm not getting, or months that I'm not driving something forward. And so when we had one of our calls, I was like in this tizzy. I'm like, I have all this passion and I want to drive and I want to like get this thing launched. And how do I? And then I was like, and I committed to this recharge and I want to take my kids on this wonderful vacation. And so choosing to make the investment and seeing that I am worth that recharge. I am worth that time. My kids and my family are worth that time. And the business will be here when I get back.
Yes.
And sure, like I say this a lot, like this new slow way for me is very different. And I'm used to done really quickly. And it's a struggle because I start to get a little down on myself where I'll be like, oh, I can't believe this isn't happening sooner. Or I can't believe I didn't get that done more quickly. And so a lot of my self-care has been in that self-talk and that mindset of all of this is part of it. All of the laying down and meditating, the taking the time to recharge on a vacation, investing in masterminds and coaching, and that space that you create in your calendar to do that work, because it is work. It's all part of it. And if I don't do that now, I'm still going to end up swirling.
It's like the recovery that pro athletes have to take or Olympians have to take. Or they'll crash and burn.
You crash and burn. Exactly. You end up, it's that tortoise or the hare, old story. Like you can run, but you're still going to hit a wall. You're going to hit a wall at some point. It might feel like you're progressing along the way, but you will hit the wall if you don't take those moments to recharge. And so learning to build that recharge in has been a huge mindset shift. It's not, a lot of people come to me and they'll be like, will you talk to us about time management? I just had the people that I consult with, they want me to do it with their administrative crew because they're just like people pleasers, overachievers, like doing the thing. And it's like, it has really nothing to do with time management. It's about energy management. It is about your mindset of saying no. And
if you feel like you're screaming into the void when you post content on Facebook or Instagram, struggling to find a sustainable and scalable lead generation process that sticks, and you just want someone who's been there and done that to reveal their secrets, then it's critical that you register to save your spot ASAP. During this live masterclass, you'll get to steal the exact strategy I used to scale my income from $0 to $1 million in just 19 months without spending a fortune on ads or suffering from burnout. Simply check out the show notes of the podcast episode for the link to register for your free spot in the LinkedIn Lead Gen Masterclass. And don't worry, even if you miss a couple of days or you can't make it to all the training sessions, we'll deliver the replays directly into your inbox daily so you can watch them on your own time. All you have to do is make sure you sign up for the masterclass before registration ends.
So it's just interesting how you have to really shift that mindset and build it in your calendar.
Because time management issues are really a prioritization issue.
Yes. 100%. Or you just got done talking to us about how next year we need to really block out our calendars and understand our actual capacity. So don't get to January and think you have a blank slate of months and months to get all the things done. Decide now, what breaks are you taking? How are you going to recharge so that when you get to planning, you actually can plan within a realistic timeline. And that is huge because so often we just get all caught up and then we think our calendar is running us.
And you feel out of control.
Yes. Versus us intentionally making those decisions. And to me, that's like the key part of self-care is being intentional about how you spend your time, creating that space for stillness and recharge, and resetting your mindset to realize that you are worth that recharge and that extra time.
Yes. What's interesting, because I know we were just talking about this before the podcast and prioritizing our time and like what we're available for and what we aren't.
Yeah.
One of the things that I've instituted is actually blocking my calendar after 4 every single day of the week, because that's when my kids get off the bus.
Mm-hmm.
And in corporate, I always would shush my kids as they were coming through the door. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, I don't want my kids to remember their childhood of mommy shushing me as I'm coming through the door. I own this fucking business.
Exactly.
I get to decide this.
Yes.
Why can I not be the one that embraces them, asks them how their day was, make sure they get a healthy snack instead of some garbage, and be done with my day? I'm the one that chooses. It's just an hour.
It's just
an
hour.
And it's priorities.
It's so true. And so I've done that too. It's I've blocked time in the morning for drop-off, time in the afternoon for pickup. And my husband and I swap. So it's good. But it's so interesting that you say this too, because I think the same applies to people still in a corporate position also. So for us as entrepreneurs, I think it's easier to get around the idea of having control over our calendars. Mindset-wise, you might think you have to spend that extra hour, right? Like you're worried about that scarcity element of like, well, if I don't spend this hour, then things go slower. So there's still the mindset. But I work with a lot of women still in corporate where it truly is this sense of the calendar owns them. And well, my boss sent me a meeting for 5 o'clock today. I can't believe that they did that. Why are they expecting me to be on this? Well, did you think about asking them to reschedule
it? Yeah.
Do you have? And so like I ended up creating these, like a list of things you can say back. Right. Because sometimes it's almost like role play in sales. Where you need to role play a little bit of what's your objection? How are you going to handle this? Yeah. Because that's not okay for me. And your boss is never going to remember that you want to pick the kids up at 4. I mean, they really should, but they're not going to. So you have to get really, I call it being unapologetic about owning that part of your space, because as entrepreneurs, I think we do have a bit more control and it's a little bit easier to get behind it. But I believe that people, even currently in corporate environment, can create a bit more space and control if they just are willing to be unapologetic about what they need and remind people.
I truly believe, even when I go back to the corporate space, like if you bring tremendous value to the corporation and you're highly valued, people will adapt to your needs.
Totally.
And I think for all the listeners here who are entrepreneurs who are learning how to lead a team, it's really important too to have healthy relationships with your team. A lot of you guys know Jackie, my CIO. I mean, it's a company policy. We don't do calls.
Right.
I have this like understood culture that Fridays, you can go get your hair done, you can get your nails done, you can do what you need to do, but know that you're not going to be held accountable to a team call, but like get your shit done. Also, in the same breath, on occasion, if I say Fridays for, you can't schedule anything on a Friday literally till the week of, if there's a fire drill.
Sure.
Then I call it like the miracle, like if you don't leave space for miracle moments, you can't work them into your calendar. And how many of us have been booked Monday through Friday with no time for miracle moments? And so, but where I was going with this is on occasion, we may have a fire drill or a last minute thing that needs to happen and I'll throw something on the calendar. And I think it's important to have a really healthy relationship with the people you work with. Because like Jackie will be like, I can't make that time. Like I've got an appointment at the vet or I'm getting my hair done. And it's like, okay, let me move that.
Right.
Let me adapt.
That mutual respect. And you're so right. And people leading teams and trying to build that culture is also getting that understanding and really tuning in. It's about being present again. It's about being tuned in to what your team needs and what works best for them and creating that environment where they feel comfortable and confident coming back and saying, actually, that's not going to work for me. Can we do this instead?
Totally. Totally. Well, okay. So this dovetails into kind of my final question here, and that's around your project with Reimagine Ambition. So I know you took this kind of sabbatical or break over the summertime with the family that you deserved, and now you're coming into the fall with the launch of this. So can we talk a little bit about it?
Yes, I'm so excited about it. So it's been a journey this year to get clarity on exactly where I want to focus and what feels aligned to me as a business leader and as an entrepreneur, as well as what is aligned. I'm a big believer in human-centered design. That's a lot of what I do in my consulting work. And so also over the summer between vacations, we were doing a lot of discovery with what we're now terming overworked moms. And it's working moms, but it's also stay-at-home moms.
Right.
Like moms today are overworked and undersupported. And so we did a lot of discovery over the summer to really figure out like, what do they need? And it was so interesting how it came to this convergence of, well, they need stillness. They need a break.
Yeah.
They need a moment to be able to say, it is all too much. And right now, in particular, even in our research, it's very hard for women to say that. The same way that it was hard for me to ask for help, or it was hard for me to slow down or be still. We are living in an era where women are starting to become more vocal about how hard it is and about how much they need support and need help. And a lot of what I see people focusing on, which is good, and I'm here for it, like the care gap, the equity gap, the gender gap, like fill all those gaps. And I want Reimagine Ambition to be a space where we are caring for the women while those gaps get filled.
Yes.
And so Reimagine Ambition is becoming a collective, and it'll be a membership-based where women can come and get exposure and access to different methodologies, to different experts, to different therapists, to help them expand and understand, what does rest look like for me? What does stillness look like for me? And along a journey. And the biggest thing that we heard from overworked moms is they don't have time to fit anything else in. And they don't have time for a village. Who's talking about this village? I don't even have time to go with my friends or to do something. And so our primary goal is to do it in an innovative way that allows women to actually take that time and space in a time that works for them. So it's not about showing up to another Zoom call and like making sure that you feel and look pretty and that you're on. This is about creating the tools that women need to be able to do that self-discovery and get access to things that you're not getting access to in corporate, or that you're not getting access to if you can't buy the mastermind with you. And so yes, it's a collective for overworked moms where they can go and recharge and refuel and really create space for themselves in community with other women.
And I love this. I know that you said that you're doing a lot of research, and this is not research backed. This is just my own observation. I'm curious your thoughts on this with like why we're so exhausted and why we've come to this place as a culture. I'm curious your thoughts on this. This is my philosophy, and it could be totally off, but this is my experience. So my mother was raised by a stay-at-home mother. So that's what she saw her mother literally do it all in the home. Took care of the home, literally like sewed their clothes, made their food, did the laundry, super mom, right? And then my mom was the first generation that was like, you can go to work. But she was raised by a mother who did everything at home. So then what was demonstrated to me was a mother who worked, but then also tried to do everything that her mother had done.
Yes.
Totally forgetting or having the awareness that what her mother did was a full-time job at home. And so what I grew up seeing was, well, my mom worked full-time and she did everything around the house. So that was the expectation that I put on myself. And this is no knock to the men listening, but it's just, men have a whole different challenges as parenthood and fathers in this day and age. But I argue it's very different than the conditioning that we've had. I remember as a teenager, I remember the first time it actually dawned on me, I'd come home from a high school soccer practice, and I was at my girlfriend's house. And my mother was divorced at this time, so I only had my mom in the house. But for the large majority of my childhood, my mom was married. But I was in my friend's house, and I noticed both of her parents worked. And we'd all gotten home and were at the house, and her father was sitting on the lazy boy chair, like watching the news. And her mother was making lunches for tomorrow. She was cooking dinner, and she had the laundry running.
Oh, yeah. Getting it all done.
And it's like, no wonder women are in adrenal crisis. They're absolutely exhausted because we're trying to take on all the responsibilities that were demonstrated to us. And it has to change.
It has to change. It has to change that second shift. We're working during the day. And I would even argue many women inside organizations are also managing the emotions of their teams. They're coming at it with empathy. They're doing more than the day job at work. Then they come home and they're doing more than that parenting or household management day job too. And I think it also takes society catching up. This is the moment. This is the era that it changes. I believe that wholeheartedly. Like I can feel that in every essence of my being. And I can see that in the research we're doing and the conversations that are sparked and happening. Women have a voice now. And there is a group of women in particular who are willing to call it out And to say in a group of men too, there are several men calling it out and saying like, there are men becoming coaches of men to help them help out more around the home. And so the more we can rewrite what it means to be a working mother so that it no longer includes all of that second shift. And so that we can really create that separation of what it used to be. And there's a really good book. What's it called? We can put it in the show notes. I wish I had it in my head, but it is a book that takes you through the history of feminism in the United States in particular, and the way in which women went to work initially in the early 1900s set us up for what we're now experiencing. And workplaces were not structured or revamped or recreated in order to support the parent, not just the mom, but parents, because both parents have these needs. It's not just for mothers. And so we are in this era where workplaces, entrepreneurs, mothers, fathers, we all have this opportunity to rewrite what it can be in the future. Yeah. And we really have to be willing to make that mindset shift because these are deep-rooted patterns. Yeah. And it is hard to let them go. It's hard. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, this has been such a good episode. We could go on forever. I know. So as we're wrapping up, 2 final questions. The first one, and you've really alluded to a lot of it, but just to kind of tie a bow in it. As you know, the premise of Elevate 360 is to take a 360-degree approach to business that bodies build businesses. Where do you feel that you've transformed the most this year in business or personal with a 360 approach to it?
Yeah, I mean, it would definitely be that stillness and that capacity to slow down. I would say within that, though, the deeper layer of it and what you've offered us and provided is that inner clarity. I think the stillness and the slowdown led to it, but I have in all parts of my life, not just the business, but in the type of mother I want to be, the type of wife I want to be, the type of daughter, the type of friend. I just have so much more of this deep sense of clarity. And I think the onions are still being unpeeled, right? But it's always a good pathway to really finding myself and that authentic part of who I am and shedding the desire to do it how I think I'm supposed to be who other people want me to be. Yep. And I think that's the greatest gift, really, that you've given me in both business and in life is what that clarity has provided in terms of getting in more tune with who I actually am. Yeah. And actually being able to speak. Yeah. I told you this the other day, at the first event, I was like, I can't even talk. I'm totally overwhelmed. I don't know what I would say. And now I can feel it happening throughout the year. I'm I'm finding my voice and I feel confident in what that voice is, and it'll keep refining and changing.
This is just the beginning.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. So speaking of that, where can people learn more about what you have to offer when it comes to Reimagine Ambition, or how can people connect with you?
Yes. So go to reimagineambition.co is our website. We are thinking about a brand change based on what we're developing, but you'll find us at reimagineambition.co, and then also on Instagram, it's at Reimagine Ambition. And then on LinkedIn, it's also LinkedIn/Reimagine Ambition. So hopefully that helps everybody find us, join. Yes. We'll be launching more in September and October to bring on a group of founders to support the collective and help with more of the discovery. We'll just keep discovering as we go.
Yes. Oh my gosh, Marissa, this has been so fun. Thanks for flying into Charlotte and doing this live.
Thanks for doing this. This was so fun. I loved it.
Yes. Yeah. All right. Well, we'll see you at the live event.
All right. Sounds good.
All right. Thanks, guys, so much for listening in on today's podcast episode. And I can't wait for you to see my upcoming guest in the next episode. You are going to love this keynote speaker. Hey, here's the deal. If you liked this, please subscribe and leave a review. And you want the latest online business growth strategies and exclusive LinkedIn pro tips sent straight to your phone? Text the word update to 704-318-2285. That is, text the word update to 704-318-2285. Can't wait to see you guys. Come find me over on Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, wherever you like to hang. Cannot wait to hear how you are enjoying and applying what you're learning. You guys reach out to me over on social because I love hearing what's resonating with you. When you reach out to me and you send me those personal DMs, they really do impact the content I continue to bring forward to you. So again, come find me, Melissa_Hinault over on Instagram, Melissa Hinault over on LinkedIn and Facebook. Can't wait to see you guys over there.